Hey everyone, welcome back to NoBullBiz TV. It's awesome to be back. We were not here last Friday. The studio was ripped apart for another project that we were working on, and we also had the Anxiety Summit. And for everybody who participated in the Anxiety Summit just this last Tuesday, it was a very powerful evening, and we're now moving everybody from the Anxiety Summit into the Summit Challenge, which is going to run for the next 90 days. So we are extremely excited about that, and I'm just proud of everybody. The first thing really when you're battling through anxiety, when you're battling through the dark tunnel of depression, is the first step really is to start talking about it, to admit that you're dealing with this, and then not to fight through it alone. So I'm proud of everybody who plugged into that, and we're excited about what we're going to do with our next Anxiety Summit in the future. But now we're moving into the Summit Challenge, which is going to be awesome. So it is such a special day, guys, because it is August the 31st, and today is my daughter's birthday. It's my oldest daughter's birthday. She turns 19 today. Which is crazy that my little princess is a 19-year-old. This is officially her last year as a teenager. So Thalia, enjoy it, because it's all uphill from here. Trust me on that. So another thing that's really cool about today is that it's the GoPro Hero 5 session giveaway. We kicked off a competition on our very first show where we featured founder of GoPro, Nick Woodman, and we launched a little bit of a competition for people to like the video, to comment GoPro, and to subscribe to our channel. So the ones who did that are in one of my favorite mugs, which is the Orange County mug. I love Orange County, California. I don't know who else loves that, but dying to get back there and do some surfing. So anybody watching from Orange County, we love the OC, good spot. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna give away the Hero 5 session camera right now. So what is the GoPro Hero 5 session camera? It is a totally cool camera. Check out this promotion right now just before we give it away. Check it out.
So we have a dream at GoPro, which is to build the invisible camera. And that's a camera that's so light, so small, so convenient to use that you forget that you're using it, but without sacrificing any of the performance. And that's what we've achieved with Session.
All right, so here we go. We got the GoPro Hero 5 session camera. We're giving it away right now. I'm gonna take the mug. I asked my wife, Amy, to come in and do the draw for me today because I'm in the studio here alone, but she didn't want to do that, so I'm doing it. And everything's in here. You guys can hear it. We're shaking it up good, all right? It's not rigged, I promise you that. So I'm gonna reach in, I'm gonna pull a name, and who is going to win the Hero 5 GoPro session camera? Who is it? It's Brad James! Brad James, congratulations, buddy. You have just won the GoPro Hero 5 session camera. So I'm just gonna put that out there. It's Brad James. Congratulations, Brad. That is exciting. So we're gonna get your information, and we will get that camera off to you in the next couple of weeks, so you can start playing with the camera, and hopefully you'll shoot something really, really cool with the camera and give us the footage so we can feature it in one of our upcoming NoBullBiz TV episodes. So congratulations, Brad. It's all yours, man. And now we're gonna move into our feature for today, which is an interesting topic. I came across this and I thought it would be really, really great to feature this particular question while we are preparing to start doing some of our off-site production stuff with some founders of companies, which we've been putting together some of those stories for you. So before we dive into this feature, I do want to promote this book. I promised you guys that every Friday we would feature a book. I can't give you a full review or a full 100% thumbs up on it because I'm actually in the middle of reading it right now, but the reason why I wanted to pull it out is I actually went to the library and I pulled this book out of the library. I started going through it, and then I went and got it at Indigo because I love it so much. So what it is it's Tools of Titans, the tactics, routines, and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. It's written by Tim Ferriss, who is the author of The 4-Hour Workweek. So I don't know if you read that book, but it's an awesome book, and I don't know why I'm spitting so much. I'm sliming everything today, apparently. But this is the book, so check it out. It is Tools of Titans, okay? So if you're looking for a great book to kind of get your head in the business game and kind of take your mindset to the next level, guys, this is awesome. It's all really short stories, short features, and Tim's done a great job of really taking the best of the best points, the hot spots, the bullets out of those conversations and putting it in this book. So if you're looking for something that is going to be in the library long term, this is definitely it. So once again, Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. Awesome book. I'm in the middle of it right now and I'm loving it, and so I thought I would share it with you guys. Okay, cool. So there it is. And now we're gonna move into our feature. So the feature is, and the question that is asked as we start to enter into this feature is, why did Starbucks fail in Australia? So I don't know if you're a Starbucks fan or not. I like Starbucks. Whenever I'm in the US, I go to Starbucks a lot because I don't really like any other coffee down there unless I'm going to like kind of a boutique coffee shop. But I go to Starbucks a lot, especially when I'm in the United States. So why is such a company that is so big and so successful? We're talking about a company that has over 28,000 locations worldwide in 76 markets. So why, when Starbucks went into Australia, did it fail? So right before we go into the feature, actually it's a feature that was done by CNBC, and I thought they did a great job. It's really short, it's about 6 minutes, but they cover a lot of ground in terms of really what happened with this story. So in China, this is crazy, you guys. In China, a new Starbucks opens every 15 hours. Every 15 hours, a new Starbucks location opens in China. Guys, that's crazy. So in Australia, now Australia is said to be the toughest market in the world to expand business into. And you're gonna learn through watching this video why that is. So if you're thinking about taking your business to Australia, you're gonna have to pay close attention to some of these big takeaways. So what went wrong? Well, in 2008, Australia closed 2/3 of its stores in Australia. And really what went wrong, which you're gonna learn in this video, is Australia is really big on culture. So pay very close attention to the things that they talk about in terms of why all of this kind of blew up in Starbucks' face. But we're gonna talk about the fact that Starbucks isn't finished yet. That's what I love about a great story, is that things might go south, things might blow up, it might not be a success right off the bat, but Starbucks is a big company and it's a big market over in Australia, which we're gonna talk about in just a few minutes. So let's get right into this, guys. So why did Starbucks fail in Australia? Let's do it.
Starbucks has coffee shops all over the world. There are more than 28,000 locations in 76 markets, from Shanghai to Guantanamo Bay. And in China, a new Starbucks location opens up every 15 hours. But there is one continent that seems uninterested in the hype over the Seattle-based coffee chain. And that continent is Australia. It's proven to be one of the toughest markets in the world to break into. So tough, in fact, that Starbucks closed more than 2/3 of its stores on the continent back in 2008. So what went so wrong with Starbucks in Australia? To answer that, let's go back to July of 2000, when Starbucks opened its first Australian shop in Sydney. From there, it expanded fast. By 2008, Starbucks had 87 stores across the continent.
I think one of the problems for Starbucks, and it's true for a lot of businesses that have been successful in one country, is that they thought that their business model could just roll out to a different environment and there was no need for them to adjust.
But that was the problem. It tried to grow the empire too fast. Starbucks rapidly opened up multiple locations instead of slowly integrating them into the Australian market.
When they launched too rapidly and didn't give the Australian consumer an opportunity to really develop an appetite for the Starbucks brand. They also moved into regional areas, into outer suburbs of major cities. And so for the Australian consumer, it was almost like it was too available for them. And so there wasn't this point of difference, this want, this need for Starbucks, and it wasn't an organic growth, which is what we very much saw in the US.
In its first 7 years in Australia, Starbucks accumulated $105 million in losses. By 2007, Starbucks Australia was hanging on by a thread, taking big loans from the US totaling up to $54 million. And in 2008, Starbucks announced it was shutting down 61 stores. But of course, 2008 was a difficult time for businesses due to the financial crisis. Along with the Australia closures, Starbucks also closed 600 underperforming American stores. But even still, such a retreat in Australia was embarrassing for the brand.
When you're shutting down 75 stores, for the Australian consumer, when they did leave the market, or at least a large number of their stores were shut down, they didn't really care.
It's partly because Australians are spoiled for choice when it comes to coffee. Australia's coffee market is one of the biggest in the world. The industry is expected to hit more than $6 billion in total revenue in 2018. They've been immersed in nuances of cafe culture since the mid-1900s, when Italian and Greek immigrants began traveling to the country. The immigrants introduced Australians to espresso. By the 1980s, Australians were fully engulfed in cafe culture. They've also grown accustomed to specialty menu items, like a flat white or an Australian macchiato.
So cafes in Australia were born out of like the Italian culture of, meeting a friend and knowing your local barista, and it being kind of like a local meeting place where everyone knew each other, and that coffee was just a part of that. And then Starbucks came in with what is more of an American style like coffee culture, which is essentially just like coffee is a product, coffee is a commodity, coffee is like perk me up in the morning. It's caffeination.
Starbucks had a basic menu and offered more sugary drinks, which most Australians didn't like.
In Australia, where local tastes are different, so we don't really want a coffee that's hundreds of ounces with lots of sugar in it. We want something a bit more sophisticated.
Plus, Starbucks charged more than local cafes. So Australians instead opted to pay less for coffee they liked from a local barista they trusted.
And so when you come in with this big hey, we're going to open all these cafes and they're all going to be to-go focused, it just was the complete wrong market for what the Australian was used to.
But there's one American coffee company that's thriving in Australia. Founded in Chicago and now based in Australia, Gloria Jean's got the traction in Australia that Starbucks couldn't. Gloria Jean's has more than 400 Australian locations and serves more than 35 million consumers in Australia each year. So what is Gloria Jean's doing in Australia that Starbucks isn't? Well, the company attributes its success to two Australians who franchised the business in their home country. Shops started to show up in Australia in 1996. Fast forward to today, the company has a presence in every Australian state. The reason? Its menu. The chain offers a wide variety of espresso drinks and specialty coffee. Failing to adapt its menu to Australians' coffee culture proved to be a mistake for Starbucks. And the company faces another challenge later this year: Italy. Starbucks is opening its first store in Milan in late 2018. Home of the espresso, Italy is rich in cafe culture. But according to Starbucks, it's not going to make the same mistakes that it did in Australia. The company said that it would develop in Italy with humility and respect for its coffee culture. It announced it would be opening a roastery, which is not your average cafe. It gives customers a chance to see coffee beans roasted and processed before their eyes. So there's a chance that it won't struggle like it did in Australia. But Starbucks isn't admitting defeat in Australia either. Starbucks is staging a comeback on the continent. In 2014, Starbucks locations in Australia were purchased by the Mount Waverley-based Withers Group. Starbucks told CNBC that since its sale to the Withers Group, the company learned a lot. So this time, it's taken a different approach to putting Starbucks on the continent.
So if you just think about Australia as a big tourism destination, there's a lot of US and Chinese tourists. Starbucks have been very successful in China, and it makes a lot of sense for them to build out because there are people looking for something that's familiar to them.
Now with 39 locations in Brisbane, Melbourne, the Gold Coast, and Sydney areas, this time it's not looking to appeal to Australians. But instead, the coffee giant hopes to be a familiar face for tourists visiting popular vacation destinations in Australia.
Australia's always been a high-volume tourist market. The same thing in terms of international students at our universities, potential opportunities for them. And we're starting to see Starbucks enter into some large shopping malls here in Australia as well.
Australia welcomed 9 million tourists from 2017 to 2018, and those international visitors spent more than $30 billion in 2017 alone. So tourists could possibly be the key to keeping the company afloat and preventing another downfall.
So awesome video, guys. Hey, I wanted to talk about some of the takeaways from that particular piece. First of all, one of the biggest things that stood out to me was Starbucks expanded too fast. We saw it in Canada with Target, and man, I miss Target in Canada. I love Target. I'm not a Walmart guy. I love Target, and I miss it. So Starbucks expanded too fast. That was the biggest problem with them. The next thing is they just assumed all the success that they were having in other countries and other locations, that they could just come into Australia and just have the same amount of success with that country, which was not the case. One of the biggest things is that in Australia, as we just learned, Australia has a huge coffee culture. And the coffee culture was actually introduced to the Australians from the Italians and the Greeks when they came over in the mid-1900s. And by the 1980s, the Aussies were all in with the coffee. So the Europeans came over, they introduced Australians to espresso, and like I said, the Aussies went all in with it. So they're big on culture. Another thing that the Australians are really, really big on is they're big on local community, relationships with their local baristas, and they hang out in these coffee shops, they know people. It's very much just a big kind of community in and around the coffee culture there. So one of the things that Starbucks did wrong too is Starbucks was charging more for their coffee products than the local coffee shops, the local cafes. So the Australians were like, why would we pay more when we can have, that relationship, when we can have that product that we like? And so they obviously sent the message to Starbucks. Now, one franchise that has done extremely well is Gloria Jeans. Now, Gloria Jeans was actually founded in Chicago, United States. And since 1996, when they started in Australia, they have now more than 400 locations in Australia. So it is different. It's not the Starbucks, right? Gloria Jeans is kind of like the Tim Hortons of coffee over in Australia that we have here in Canada. But they've had a lot of success. And Gloria Jeans actually serves more than 35 million consumers in Australia per year. That's a lot of business, and they've actually had a lot of success there. So Starbucks is now moving into Italy, as we just learned, and they're going into Italy within the next year. They're moving into Milan, and this is interesting. So they're actually taking what they've learned from the failure in Australia, and they're going into Italy with a very different focus. They've got a big respect with this launch for the local culture in Italy, and they're doing something really cool, something really different. They're actually locally opening up a roaster boutique. So I'm going to be roasting their beans there in their location, which I think the locals are going to enjoy. So we're going to see what happens. Starbucks is not in a big hurry to do something over there. They're going to take their time, and they're going to grow organically like they have throughout the United States. Now, Starbucks isn't finished in Australia. They're planning a comeback in Australia, and it's a massive market, and this is why they're doing it. So tourism generates over $30 billion in revenue per year, and that $30 billion was actually a stat that was pulled out of the year just 2017 alone. So in 2017, over $30 billion. It's a massive, massive tourist market in Australia. So guys, go Starbucks, go. If you're a Starbucks fan, guys, you got to cheer them on with this comeback story that they're working on in terms of going over to Australia. So I hope you guys like that. I definitely had some really big takeaways. I know in business I've made mistakes in the past of growing too fast, trying to expand too quickly, and sometimes it's not that great. And in this story, it actually backfired for Starbucks. So I'm cheering Starbucks on in their comeback for Australia. So go Starbucks, go. And guys, I will see you again next Friday right here on NoBullBiz TV for our next Founder Friday feature. Until then, keep winning, stay focused, and take massive action. Cheers.